Today, we're going to be shortlisting candidates to join our team at Physiology. Okay, the company that has revolutionized the science of bodily functions. Candidates we are looking for today should have a strong work ethic and be able to work 24/7. Have the capacity to carry oxygen in the human body and deliver it in a timely fashion when needed. He or she should also be able to carry a heavy load of carbon dioxide and dispose of it accordingly to waste disposal regulations, and be willing to work with human resource in regards of salary and fringe benefits. So is everyone clear on specific requirements we are looking for in the job today?
Yes.
Absolutely. Plasma. I have something else to add to the requirements, as I will be working very closely with the empire.
Okay. Sure, go ahead and tell us what's on your mind.
Well, I strongly believe that the candidate should be a team player and willing to forego any kind of vacation.
Does everyone agree with Miss Redden over here?
Yes, I do, and we should add the requirements to the job description.
Seconded.
Okay then, I will go ahead and add that to the job requirements. Now I think it's time to review the candidates for the job. Miss Red, do you have the shortlists?
So, we have shortlisted 4 candidates for the job. Hemoglobin, Myoglobin.
Okay, well, it's hemourethrin, I believe, is on the short list. And I think by judging on the previous work experience, we can rule out hemocyanin and hemourethrin. Hemocyanin and hemourethrin only seem to have previous experience in invertebrates. We don't want that. So I propose that we all call hemoglobin and myoglobin for the interview. Can we all agree on that?
Yes.
Cut.
Excuse me, pardon me. Oh, okay.
Oh, good morning, Miss Hemoglobin. Are you ready for today? Did you have a difficulty finding our office? Please have a seat, as you already have.
But no, I didn't need any help finding where you were. It's pretty easy. I don't really like asking for directions, but you know, if I need to, I will.
Good to hear, Mrs. Hemoglobin. I'm Plasma, the hiring manager, and my job within the company is to make sure that the oxygen transport and bodily defense teams function smoothly. I will let my team leaders introduce themselves to you.
Good morning, Mr. Hemoglobin. Nice to meet you. I am Red Blood Cell. Miss Red, for short. If you are hired for the position, then you'll be working very closely with me in the oxygen transport department.
It's entirely my pleasure, ma'am. I very much look forward to working with you.
Hello, I'm Platelets, and my expertise mainly lies in defense and repair, but I work very close with the other members of the team to help stop bleeding and the loss of other team members.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Plate. Let's totally get oxygenated later.
Good morning, Mrs. Hemoglobin. I'm White Blood Cell. You can call me Mr. White. I am trained extensively in defensive functions. My team and I protect the entire organization from unexpected attacks by extracellular terrorists.
Very nice to meet you, Mr. White. You have such an honorable job.
Thank you, Mrs. Hemoglobin. Very kind of you to say so.
Now that we've all had the pleasantries taken care of, let's get down to business, shall we? Miss Hemoglobin, please tell us a little about yourself. Should we start off?
I really don't like to talk about myself, but since you asked, I will try and give you a sense of who I am and what I do. I'm a protein made up of chains of amino acids folded together to form a globular structure with a hydrophobic core and a hydrophilic exterior. I can carry oxygen and carbon dioxide, and in some cases, nitric oxide.
Whoa.
Miss Hemoglobin, can you tell me a few more details about your structure, please?
My pleasure, Miss Plate. Let's. I happen to have 4 polypeptide chains made up of amino acids joined together by peptide bonds. My chains are named alpha and beta, alpha beta. And I have 2 alpha and 2 beta chains. My primary structure can further fold up to give rise to secondary structure elements such as alpha helices and loops. Most proteins also have beta sheets, but I am comprised primarily of alpha helices.
What exactly is an alpha helix and how does it differ from a beta sheet?
Good question. An alpha helix is a right-handed spiral structure that is formed due to twisting of the polypeptide chain. There are on average 3.6 amino acid residues per turn of the helix. It looks like a corkscrew. My alpha helical structure is stabilized by the formation of hydrogen bonds between the amino acids making up the chain. On the other hand, beta sheets are made up of amino acid chains folded to form a fan-like structure. stabilized by interstranded hydrogen bonding. Both these elements are repetitive structures and occur many times in a protein molecule. The alpha helices and beta sheets are joined together to form by loops or random coils to form a tertiary structure like I have here.
Thank you, Miss Hemoglobin. That was very helpful.
Yes. This is all very well, but what does it have to do with you carrying out your job?
Now, Mr. White, let's not get impatient. Let's give Miss Hemoglobin a chance to explain herself.
Thank you, Mr. Platelets. I was just getting to that point. But first, I need to explain my quaternary structure to everyone. As I was saying, alpha helices and beta sheets connected by random coils come together to form a tertiary structure per chain. As I mentioned, I have 4 chains, 2 alpha helices and 2 beta chains. When all 4 of my chains come together and are coordinated with heme in each chain, this gives rise to my quaternary structure. Each chain is called a subunit, and when all 4 of my subunits come together, then I am complete. Because I have 4 subunits, I am referred to as a tetrametric protein. And because I contain iron, I am also referred to as a metalloprotein. My quaternary structure thus contains more than one polypeptide chain that differentiates it from the tertiary structure. Just in case you are wondering, my iron ion can bind oxygen in the peripherin ring surrounding my iron ion is responsible for binding globin.
Wow, that is fascinating. What an extremely complicated structure you have.
Why, thank you, Miss Red. I will take that as a compliment. Yes, my structure is rather complicated, and it was solved back in 1959 by a scientist named Max Perutz, who co-shared the Nobel Prize in 1962 for elucidating my structure.
How exactly did this Max Perutz discover your structure?
I'm glad you asked, Mr. White. He used a technique called X-ray crystallography. He first of all used various chemical solutions to make me form crystals. Once he had a nice, well-formed crystals, he passed X-rays through me. The crystals scattered. The X-rays and the points of diffraction formed a pattern on an X-ray film that was placed behind me. Using this pattern, he could make complicated calculations to determine my structure.
This is fascinating stuff. How does your structure make you well suited for the job?
I was just coming to that point, sir. The component of my structure responsible for binding oxygen is the iron heme. Since I have 4 subunits, each with its own iron, I can bind up to 4 molecules of oxygen at a time. Is this a test right now? 4.
Wow. Well, how does this compare to Mr. Myoglobin?
My understanding is that he can only carry 1 molecule of oxygen at a time.
Is that so?
To my knowledge, sir, it appears to be true.
So where exactly does oxygen binding occur?
Well, that's a good question. In the arterial blood, because I'm oxygenated, the arterial blood appears a brighter shade of red due to oxygen binding to my red iron groups.
So it is you who imparts color to the blood cells?
Yes, ma'am, I believe so.
Can you explain how exactly the oxygen binds to your heme?
Absolutely. The fact of the matter is that oxygen is not very soluble in an aqueous solution, such as blood, so it needs to bind to me in order to be transported. Each of my iron ions can bind 1 oxygen molecule, so I can carry 4 oxygen molecules at a time. This is called my oxygen carrying capacity. The reason why oxygen binding to me is very efficient is because of a process called cooperative binding.
Oh, cooperative binding. So what exactly is cooperative binding?
Very simply, it means that once 1 oxygen molecule is bound to me, I can change shape and undergo a conformational change rapidly in order to bind the 2nd and 3rd molecule and 4th molecule of oxygen to bind even more efficiently. Changes in the structure of one of my subunits are translated into structural changes into adjacent subunits. My structure can change with the binding of oxygen from a low affinity T state to a high affinity R state. Would you guys like to see a better example of cooperativity?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
She's not cooperative. I guess I'm getting a little bit more cooperative now. Oh man, now I feel super cooperative.
Yeah. And how does that work?
When my iron is oxygenated, it moves closer to the peripherin ring. As a result, the histidine residue is drawn closer to the heme group. This movement of histidine residue then shifts the position of other amino acids that are near it, and the structure of the interface is altered, which leads to other structural changes. What this means is that when a single heme group in me becomes oxygenated, my entire protein changes its shape. In my new shape, it is easier for the other 3 heme groups to become oxygenated. Thus, the binding of one molecule of oxygen enhances my ability to bind more oxygen molecules. This property is known as cooperative binding. I can bind oxygen cooperatively so that in places of my body with high oxygen concentrations, I can take up oxygen. The cooperative binding of oxygen enables me to deliver almost 1.7 times as much oxygen than it would be if the sites were independent. My regulation by oxygen dramatically increases my physiological oxygen carrying capacity. In the tissues where oxygen concentration is low, I can give up oxygen also in a cooperative manner, thus releasing oxygen efficiently into the tissues.
Okay, I get that you can efficiently carry oxygen, but how do you release oxygen, carry carbon dioxide, and release it into the lungs for disposal?
Excellent question. This can be explained by a phenomenon called the Bohr effect, where hydrogen ions and carbon dioxide help to promote the release of oxygen.
It all sounds very complicated to me.
Not at all, ma'am. It's actually very simple. My oxygen affinity decreases as pH decreases from a value of 7.4. Thus, as I move into regions of low pH, I tend to release oxygen. In addition, I respond to carbon dioxide with a decrease in oxygen affinity, which helps the release of oxygen in tissues with a high carbon dioxide concentration. This type of regulation of oxygen binding by hydrogen ions and carbon dioxide is called the Bohr effect after Christian Bohr, who described this phenomenon in 1904. I'm carried with bound carbon dioxide and hydrogen ions in the blood back to the lungs. In the lungs, I can release the hydrogen ions and carbon dioxide and rebind oxygen. Thus, I help to transport hydrogen ions and carbon dioxide in addition to transporting oxygen.
Miss Hemoglobin, thank you very much for your time. Conversation with you has been extremely interesting. We'll let you know on the results and have your interview on a later date.
Well, thank you all for having me. I look forward to working with all of you in the future. Can I just have a high... Oh, sorry, too slow. Thank you so much. It was nice meeting you all. Goodbye, good day. See you all later. Au revoir.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, please fill out your evaluations and we'll call on the next candidate. Histidine, can we have Myoglobin in for the next interview? Thank you.
Hi. Can I come in?
Myoglobin, very nice to meet you. Come on in.
Hi.
Take a seat.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. Yeah, okay, Mrs. Myoglobin, let me introduce myself, or introduce Mrs. Red, and Mr. White, and then that is Plates. Let's.
Can I call you Plates for short?
Sure thing.
Okay, well, let's get right into it.
Miss Myoglobin, I'm the division chief for the oxygen transport group. Could you tell me in a few words why you'd be suitable as a candidate for our team?
Mrs. Red, I am a globular monomeric protein found primarily in the muscles, and I can bind oxygen molecules delivered by hemoglobin, and I am capable of binding a single oxygen molecule. So,
I see. So you're primarily found in the blood?
well, no ma'am, but that doesn't mean I won't be there for you. Okay.
Thank you. Could you tell me a little bit about your structure?
Sure. I contain a single polypeptide chain and am built of primarily alpha helices and some random turns. I contain a heme group, which allows me to reversibly bind the oxygen. My interior is hydrophobic residues. The only charged residues I have inside me are 2 histidines, which play a vital role in the binding of oxygen.
So what is the mechanism by which you use to bind oxygen?
Well, it involves a little bit of some complicated chemistry, but I can explain, I guess. My iron can bind to 4 nitrogens in the center of the protophorin ring, and leaving me with 2 free binding sites. One site binds the histidine, the other is bound with free oxygen. The histidine prevents other large molecules from entering oxygen binding sites, and also makes the reaction reversible.
So what you are saying is that the oxygen carrying capacity is 1 molecule of oxygen per 1 molecule of myoglobin?
That is correct, yes. One.
So, how does your structure differ from that of Mr. Hemoglobin?
Well, hemoglobin is a tetramer composed of 2 subunits, alpha and beta, and I'm a monomer, so I don't have a quaternary structure at all.
Oh, so in terms of function, how do you differ from this hemoglobin?
Well, sir, I combine oxygen much more tightly than hemoglobin. That's why I'm suited well for oxygen binding in the muscle. Additionally, I can act as a backup system for hemoglobin under extreme conditions like exertion or exercise, because as you can tell, I work out. When hemoglobin cannot supply enough oxygen to the muscle, I can take over because I'm able to store oxygen since I hold on to it more tightly. Letting go of it isn't easy, but as a result, I am able to store oxygen reserves in the muscles.
Very interesting. So what you're basically saying is that you don't release oxygen into the blood. But why?
Well, I don't release oxygen into the blood because I have a higher affinity for oxygen than hemoglobin. Furthermore, the partial pressure in the mitochondria is much lower than the blood, so that when I do give up my oxygen, the concentration gradient favors delivery to the mitochondria rather than the blood. This property can be illustrated with the graphs depicting my high affinity for oxygen, which I have prepared in my notes, which is this one here. As you can see, I'm very effective.
Good number.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. It's very good. Very good curves. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, now I understand. So you would be more useful in the environment of the skeletal muscle when hemoglobin is under excessive pressure?
That is correct, ma'am. We like to work as a team, hemoglobin and I, because we're buddies. He's my friend. My buddy hemoglobin carries the oxygen from the bloodstream, then passes some of it to me in the muscles for storage until it's needed for, those stressful situations like exercise.
So, as I mentioned, I'm the division chief for the oxygen transport group. However, my deputy, Mr. Muscles, is responsible for the recruitment to the oxygen and exercise branch of the division. Let me see if he's available to join us for the
Okay.
interview.
What if I go to the bathroom while you're calling them? Alright,
Yeah.
let's see what it is.
Bye, guys. Mr. Muscles?
Would you guys like to hear a joke while we
Would you like
wait?
to join us for our discussion?
I would love to.
You would love to? I've been crafting this one for a while. So, a neutron walks into a bar, and he asks the bartender, how much for a beer? And the bartender says, for you, no charge. You guys actually laughed at me. Oh my gosh, no one's ever laughed at me before. Well, at me, but not like at my jokes.
What's up, blunts? Get Mr. Muscles in the house. Let's get it. Oh, let's real quick. What we got here today? All right. Yeah, that's it. That's it. What we got today? Does that mean?
That's me.
Mr. Muscles, do you have any specific questions for the candidate since this is your area of expertise?
Yeah, absolutely. I got some questions. All right. Thanks, Mrs. Red, for getting me in here. All right. Okay, let's switch this up real quick. All right. Call me in real quick. I gotta switch up. All right. So now, Mrs. Myoglobin, might I call you that? Okay. It is my understanding that your function primarily in the skeletal muscle rather than the blood. This intrigues me. Why is this?
Intrigued? Well, sir, as I was explaining before, the blood needs to be able to lose oxygen as well as capture it. The whole point is to take oxygen into the lungs and then release it throughout the body. Blood that is really good at only capturing oxygen would be like an oxygen trap. If I were present in the blood, I would not want to let go of that oxygen because I have a high affinity for it. That's why I take oxygen from hemoglobin and store it in the muscle.
Didn't hear a word of that, but great answer.
Okay, sir, thank you.
All right.
I have one last question for you, Mr. Myoglobin. Why do deep sea mammals have higher concentrations of myoglobin?
Well, thanks for asking. I love dolphins. Deep sea diving mammals can take long underwater dives. In order to have enough stored oxygen to allow them to do this, they need to have much higher concentration of me. Usually when proteins are highly concentrated in one place, they start to clump, which stops them from functioning properly. In the case of deep diving sea mammals, they have evolved variants of myoglobin that are less likely to clump because they have highly charged surface that allows them to remain at high concentrations without a loss of function.
Alright, I'm out of here. Gotta hit the gym. Gonna have this dumbbell. Alright. Good answer. Thank you for your time, Mrs. Myoglobin. We will let you know our decision at a future date.
Thank you very much, everyone. I look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you.
Thanks for filling in. Alright. So, now, ladies and gentlemen, a very difficult task at hand here. Who do we hire? Mr. Hemoglobin or Mrs. Myoglobin?
It's not difficult at all, Mr. Plasma. I choose hemoglobin for my oxygen transport division. He's more valuable to me than myoglobin.
But Miss Red, my branch cannot function properly without Mr. Myoglobin.
So
whom do we hire?
Okay. It's a tough one, guys. Very tough one. You know what? We hire both. That's it. Mr. Hemoglobin will take care of oxygen transport in the blood, while Mr. Myoglobin will take care of oxygen storage and release into the muscle. Does that sound reasonable to everybody?
Yes. Great decision.
I know, guys. I'm the chief. So, okay then. Let's. I'll get our paperwork done and invite both Mr. Hemoglobin and Mr. Myoglobin back to physiology team.
Just the two of us in an assigned focus. It's time to get this mission rolling. Don't wanna make a fuss, but that was the pancreas. Slow down before we reach the colon.